Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me and giving me your attention for about the next 30 minutes as we talk GenAI security, agent security with Acuvity and Portkey. First, let's talk a little bit about Portkey. The Portkey portfolio enables enterprises to securely and efficiently adopt generative AI at scale. Portkey's AI Gateway provides centralized control over AI usage with deep observability, policy enforcement, and cost management across both proprietary and open source models. Portkey helps teams operationalize AI responsibly by standardizing how models are accessed, securing data in transit, and integrating seamlessly with existing infrastructure. With granular governance and real-time insights, Portkey's AI Gateway makes AI adoption safe, scalable, and aligned with enterprise standards. And today, well, I'll let Vushank introduce himself.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Patrick. Hi, everyone. I'm Rushant, part of the founding team here at Portkey. We've been building Portkey for the past 2 years. We have built and open sourced the AI gateway pattern as you start to scale your GenAI initiatives from 0 to 10, 100, 1,000 engineers. Portkey becomes a singular abstraction layer that helps you tackle all of these ops challenges in a single platform. Today, we are very happy to share our integration with Acuvity and help you understand how using combination of Portkey plus Acuvity, we are able to take your GenAI apps to production securely. Back to you, Patrick.
Amazing. Thank you. Next, Acuvity. Acuvity Rhino is a generative AI security platform that protects organizations across both employee access and application-driven AI usage. It monitors and classifies prompts and outputs across web, desktop, and agent-based AI interactions, detecting sensitive data, enforcing policy controls, and ensuring compliance. Acuvity also provides complete auditability over every action taken by agentic applications, giving organizations visibility and accountability for automated AI behavior. By understanding context, intent, and meaning, Acuvity delivers semantic security that goes far beyond traditional DLP. Sudeep, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Patrick. I'm Sudeep Padiyar, the VP of Product at Acuvity AI. Joined the company 8 months ago. Have been in cybersecurity for over 15 years. Very excited to talk about everything we've built with Portkey for complete security of your GenAI agents and applications.
Amazing. And maybe we'll just continue from there, Sudeep. Your extensive background in cloud and containers and API security. Talk to us a little bit about how do we best secure GenAI agentic applications? What are the best practices?
Sure. Yeah, so Patrick, if you look at it, cloud and container security started off with security posture management and then
Sure.
evolved into cloud native application security. API security, which I worked on later, was an extension of the WAF market, as most web applications were being powered by APIs. API catalog, security testing were important components in addition to runtime protection. GenAI is a completely new attack surface. That's why we chose to call it Rhino, because it's a huge attack surface, which unfortunately security teams may not have a complete understanding of today. So GenAI risk due to the various attributes contributing to due to the disparate GenAI providers, data loss prevention across various modalities. If you look at all the content going to GenAI with whiteboards into code, we are seeing all the new announcements with cursor and everything. Meeting recordings right after this will be uploaded, might go to GenAI. We see Zoom having all this functionality. All of the different ways by which data is making its way to GenAI needs to be secured completely. Content moderation, which is a new aspect altogether, due to toxicity, bias, and runtime protection for a new class of threats,
Hmm.
makes it one of the top concerns for CISOs today. Those are all the ways by which one needs to secure GenAI agentic applications. We'll talk more about it in the course of this conversation.
Vushank, can you tell us a little bit more about the GenAI gateway market in general and where Portkey fits in, what the special sauce is?
Yeah. We built the AI gateway for a basic need we had as developers, which was we just wanted to be able to experiment multiple LLMs without having to go and write integrations or wrappers for every single API out there.
Hmm.
And there's way too many out there, right? There's OpenAI, Anthropic, all the hyperscalers. AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, they have their own inference APIs and a lot more. So we just thought it'd be cool to build an open source AI gateway, a unified API that lets you route between multiple LLMs without you having to do anything else. As it turns out, as you started building that, it is exactly what enterprises needed. When you're a big enterprise and you've got, I don't know, 1,000 engineers hacking on different GenAI initiatives, you don't want all those engineers to just go out and continue working with all the new LLMs that come, all the new provider APIs that they need to work with. It's much better if it's from a centralized AI platform. You just provision
Standardized,
them APIs,
right?
yeah, and then they're able to do things. Of course, because we allow them to do that, there's a lot of deep governance features that we're able to build into it. So now you as a platform admin, you are able to set up granular access control, set up budget limits, rate limits, and then provision those across different teams and different developers across your entire org. So that's what we're doing at Portkey now.
We'll get back to that soon. Sadeep, we make a lot about the use of platforms versus products. And I'm curious, in that Acuvity secures both users and applications, why is it important to do so from one common platform?
No, that's an excellent question. Given GenAI security is a new aspect, there is always this conversation about do you need a couple of point solutions or an extension to what security vendors are already doing for the audience's benefit. We started with securing employees, what we call GenAI access security. That was the initial usage for GenAI back right after the announcement of chat. We started by securing chatbots like ChatGPT, Anthropic, Claude, and GitHub Copilot was a big one. The GenAI discovery and risk associated with data being used in model training, sharing with third-party models, retention being one of the concern which has now been brought in because the data shared with some of these providers could be used for years. Not everybody is clear about data retention. Is that data being used in the models? Is it being shared with third parties? All of those things went into the risk, which is extremely important from a platform perspective. The DLP aspect for sensitive data such as PII, PCI, CCPA, secrets from code going into LLMs has always been a top concern for customers. That is why the employee safety or employee safe usage has always been one of the key aspects. And that's where everybody's attention was earlier. Now, as applications started getting built, everybody has APIs. All of these GenAI providers have made it very easy with SDKs and APIs, and with companies like Portkey having AI gateways. That was a logical extension, and there are a lot of aspects which need to be taken care of from a security perspective there. So if you look at the LLMs having all of the functionality exposed via APIs from Anthropic, OpenAI, Perplexity, we had built a proxy, right? We had a proxy-based architecture. We were able to build transparent proxies fairly quickly for a startup in most cloud environments and in Kubernetes and Ray, all the work that we've done with our scan APIs with Portkey, that was a logical extension to secure agentic applications.
Hmm.
And a lot of these aspects are similar, right? As in, if you look at it, you do want to know which developers in your organization are using, let's say, OpenAI APIs versus others who might be using DeepSeek without necessarily understanding all the security ramifications there. So the visibility aspect or the sensitive data aspect, of course, the threats are very different. You have things like privilege escalation,
Sure.
tool misuse. So all of those, the threat aspect that we saw was a little different. But now if you have a complete GenAI platform, which gives an enterprise visibility and a complete risk and threat assessment for both their employees going to OpenAI directly as opposed to using agentic applications, that makes a big difference. And now, if you bring in MCP to the mix,
Hmm.
MCP can be accessed via servers, which the agentic applications will use. MCP is also available if you were to use one of the desktops, such as Claude Desktop, because you could bring in a Docker plugin and then attach to multiple MCP servers from there. So our initial hypothesis 18 months ago is now coming into realization because those lines are blurring between what is employee usage when he goes directly from his laptop versus what happens with all the different tooling.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is an agent? We used to think of
Exactly.
agents as something we build proprietarily, but now, our big AI service providers build agents themselves so that they can extend the power of their hard work in the LLM to the desktop. So, yeah, I hear you. It's becoming a more complex story, but what a good opportunity to talk about, why is this marriage of Acuvity and Portkey better together? Specifically, and that's a question really to both of you. Why does this partnership make a lot of sense?
Prashank, you want to go first?
Absolutely. When we built the AI gateway, we had this vision to make the gateway extensible. So to work with state-of-the-art partners such as Acuvity to enhance what the gateway can do. Essentially, we are allowing now our customers to do is, hey, what we built, what we think is possibly one of the best AI gateways in the market. We also allow you to bring in what are potentially the best AI guardrails. You need a combo of both of these when you go to production, when you allow your developers to use anything related to agents from within your networks without having a centralized gateway, without having a centralized security layer. It's just not going to happen. So kind of that's what we allow. We built this in an open source way, where
Mm,
on top of the gateway, you are able to bring in plugins that you can apply before the request to the LLM, or after you get the response back and show those to the users, you can apply any kind of guardrails. For example, in case of Acuvity, you are able to apply scan prompt guardrails that takes care of a lot of different threat and security scenarios
mm.
that enterprises are going to face when they take GenAI to production.
That makes sense. Patrick, from the Acuity perspective, right? I had seen that model work very well in API security products behind API gateways such as Kong, MuleSoft, Apigee, and would provide the key cataloging and runtime protection for the OWASP API top 10 threats, right? Like broken object level authorization, broken function level authorization. So that model is actually, worked very well for technologies on the API side. Similarly, when we started talking to the Portkey team, we saw all the capabilities of guardrails, and in this case, it was provided with simple Python SDKs, right?
Mm,
So if you have a GenAI gateway and your application developer is accessing everything using SDKs, we built our SDK and incorporated our scan APIs. Any developer now looking at comprehensive security for their GenAI agents or applications sitting behind a GenAI gateway, then it was very, very straightforward for them to figure out which are the application flows for which they need full security, which are the application flows where they anticipate sensitive data coming in. So they could just look for everything that we do for sensitive data leak detection, whether it is secrets or PCI or PII, or then also look at all the different aspects of threats, whether it
mm.
is prompt injection or jailbreaks or harmful content. So all of that can be done programmatically, and we will show that in the demo very quickly. But that kind of made it very logical for us to have integrations with Portkey, so that our joint customer base can actually take benefit of easy security insertion via SDKs.
Rushank, let's talk a little bit more about the GenAI gateway. What are the main features? How does Portkey address those? And maybe as an add-on, where does security fit into all that?
Absolutely. What Portkey essentially allows enterprises to do is they take our AI gateway, they deploy that internally. That allows them to build an internal GenAI platform on which they bring in all the engineers and teams onto Portkey. Now, the platform teams get a centralized way to set up governance across all the LLM APIs that are out there. They're able to set up budget limits, rate limits, be able to set up granular access control. Now, say there's a separate team that wants access to specific models. The platform team has a very simple workflow in order to enable
Sure.
this team to be able to use any of those APIs.
Hmm.
And after when they allow these teams to start routing the requests to the LLMs, these platform teams are in no position to do that unless they have security baked into the platform itself. So that's kind of where the combination of Portkey, Acuvity, and other such partners comes into place. Where what they're able to do is now this platform team has a unique position where they can say that, hey, it's become fairly simple for me to provision access to these APIs. On top of that, it's also become fairly simple for me to apply network level guardrails. So I can just say, across my entire org, as long as you are on the Portkey platform, I don't care which LLM you are using, where you are sending the request to, you need to adhere to these specific policies that I've set on the guardrails that I can apply through Portkey. Just with the combination of Portkey and Acuity, all of those possibilities become real.
Well, piggybacking on the security side of that answer for sure, Sudeep, how does Acuvity look into all aspects of security insertion for agentic apps? And, because Shink mentioned it, where do guardrails fit in?
Sure. Patrick, if you're okay with it, I'll share my screen. I
Yes,
can
please.
actually show a quick schematic. Let me do that. Give me a quick second.
Sure.
So if I now look at, so if you take this as a quick example, these are all the typical flows, or these are all the different aspects for an agentic app which has been built in-house, right? So if you look at the arrows indicating the typical traffic flows, you have these apps which have been built using APIs. Most of them are either in Python or Node.js, deployed in Kubernetes or Ray. We have easy means for the SDK insertion and scan APIs for the first three. And then with Kubernetes, obviously, we have a way by which with Sidecar, our proxy can be inserted. So all of the traffic can be inspected. So that is one easy mechanism. Now, as you go further on the right in the picture, you see the GenAI gateway, Portkey being one of the key vendors in that area. There are others like Light LLM. And then we have a native transparent proxy, in which case, obviously, you don't need anything else, and it can go directly. On the right, you're seeing MCP servers are the new thing in town, whether it's from any of the leading providers. And we have a dedicated webinar planned for that, so I won't go into more details there, but that is a easy insertion with the mini bridge sitting in front of each of the MCP servers. If you go to the bottom, that's where your first party LLMs, whether they're from Hugging Face or Mistral or Llama, your third party LLM, that's where the guardrails actually come in.
Okay.
Now, thanks to the Portkey integration, you don't even need to go that far because all of these guardrails can then be invoked from the GenAI gateway itself. We have separate categories for data loss prevention, exploits, for malcontent, for filtering all the data based on specific patterns. Those guardrails can be easily invoked from within the application itself. That's a true merit and of the Portkey integration is that once it's codified, you don't have to worry about where it's going to be deployed, whether it's in the public cloud or in the data center. It's all done via code. The seamless integration done once there will ensure that the guardrails will follow wherever it's deployed.
Yeah, really a real straightforward process to something that's relatively complex for sure.
Yeah, and for somebody like me, I've spent probably 10 years on network security insertion. So it was a very refreshing change to see just bring in your Python SDKs and
Oh
there you
yeah.
go, right? It's a very complex problem which has been simplified by invoking all of this via code.
What does the typical Portkey customer journey look like? I'm a new Portkey customer. How do I get started?
Typically, Portkey is first adopted by like a platform team at a big org. This could be a traditional company that's exploring GenAI. This could be a well-established tech company with a large ML platform team. It originates typically at a platform team or overall infra team. This
Sure.
team is tasked to figure out a way to securely give access to everybody across the earth to all of these LLM APIs to do that. They use Portkey along with security partners like Acuvity and others, and then they're able to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, fantastic. Solving a real problem for sure. Along similar lines, Sudeep, can you tell us how customers are looking at agentic applications and more specifically how to secure them?
If you look at the prior schematic, these agentic applications are being coded in languages like Python or Node.js, and I'm sure there are several other ones. Now, From a developer standpoint, the main thing that has come up is we need to have different controls, and depending on the kind of application we are building and the kind of compliance needed, if the likelihood of runtime exploits is high because this is an internet facing app where a hacker or a regular user would be similar when it comes to how they are deployed. So that's where the way by which you can invoke these guardrails, the way by which you can integrate them seamlessly, is one of the main things that application developers look for. The generic set of APIs or SDKs, then how can that be streamlined? How can that be actually brought into the different application workflows is where most of the effort is. And that's why we've tried to simplify it. I'm not just trying to, market it here, but
Mm-hmm.
you can look at, as in our users can look at all the different APIs that are published in Python. We also have a free module so people can try this themselves. So onboarding your application, onboarding, the different ways by which the guardrails can be invoked is fairly straightforward. So your agentic applications can be secured, like Rushang was saying, right at the get-go, when they are developed, instead of having your security teams or product security teams try to do the different insertion models, they can be coded with security built in.
Yeah, it's an important starting point, never mind finish point for sure. We've been talking a lot about the hands-on, and I think that's an appropriate level. But if we take a step back, we know that adoption of agentic applications in general has suffered by the challenge that security is around that effort. How can the integration of Portkey and Acuvity help those people specifically answer that question of, gee, I'd love to build X, Y, and Z, but I'm a little bit too concerned about the security implications?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. If you look at all the different analysis that has been done on what is inhibiting the wide adoption of agentic applications, in addition to not all the developers having the necessary skill set, the second one probably is security, right? And that's understandable because it's a
Yeah.
totally new paradigm shift when it comes to building applications. Security is obviously one of the top concerns. Even if you go back to the basics of visibility, data protection, and runtime threat protection, the simple visibility aspects about, what are the total number of applications, that a engineering team has built, how many of them are leveraging different agentic frameworks, what the volume of traffic going through them, once they are in production or pre-production, what are all the different vulnerabilities. With the integration right off the bat, you'll start getting all of this visibility into both Portkey as well as Acuvity, right? So all of the flows you will understand from a gateway perspective in Portkey, a subset of them which have threats or malcontent, you can zoom into that in Acuvity, and then you get all the other visibility components that you're used to with Acuvity. So that's a very easy way by which you start off, you get a complete understanding of all the agentic or regular applications,
Mm-hmm.
which are leveraging GenAI. Start with the visibility, the compliance, the risks associated with them. Then with the guardrails, you can make a choice of whether you want to block this traffic or you want to, send it to a SIM, send it to a source. So the regular workflows, forensics and analytics are all available. So your security teams don't need to look at this as a new blob which they don't have any understanding of. We have tried to make it as simple as possible so that it fits into the rest of the ecosystem.
Yeah, and maybe that warrants a deeper question around what are the different types of guardrails that Acuvity supports with Portkey, right? The second question is, are these detection only, or are they sort of runtime, have the ability to block? Does any of that functionality exist?
No, that's an excellent question. Let me answer the second part first because that's very important for security teams. The benefit with the Portkey is that they have given us options for both, right? Initially, in pre-prod or in development, the product security or the developers would want to see everything. So they could turn it on with just visibility. And then once you go into production or when you're actually doing IaaS or DaaS testing or red teaming, you could also block it, right? So that's a very important capability wherein
Mm.
with just a single configuration knob, you have an ability to do that. Now, when it comes to the guardrails, we have everything from the threat prevention suite, such as prompt injection, jailbreak, malicious URLs. Then, when you look at malcontent, we have guardrails for toxicity, for harmful, for
Mm.
any kind of biases. We have different language verifiers that our customers who are using Acuvity are very familiar with. PII, you can go very granular, whether you want the entire data set or you want to go into just SSNs or addresses or phone numbers. Secrets can be redacted. All of those capabilities that somebody using Acuvity has seen both in the UI as well as in our APIs. Now there's an easy way by which they can pick each one of them, and more importantly, with the relevant thresholds. If toxicity is not as important as prompt injection, then the toxicity threshold can be very high, but the prompt injection threshold can be relatively low because you don't want any kind of prompts which are potentially having prompt injection coming in. So all of those are available in the guardrails.
Well, this sounds like a perfect time to ask the $1 million question. Are we prepared for a demo?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay,
Uh,
good.
I'll pray to the demo gods.
Of course, always.
Let me share my screen so that I can quickly go through that. Once we go to the Portkey portion, I'll pass it on to you. So if you look at it here, for everybody's benefit, this is how straightforward what we are talking about is once you get into the individual application. Now, these are all the necessary hooks. You will see that in Portkey very quickly. After the request, before the request, you can have the same or different configurations when it comes to the guardrails. And this is how simple it is with the chat completion APIs. These two different prompts will be sent to Portkey, and then you will get the responses. Here, because I had said if you see any malicious traffic, then you should block the traffic. That's why you're seeing this in red, because when I ran this, the traffic was blocked. Now, if we go into the two products, let me try to bring that screen. So if you look at this guy in detail here, within Acuvity, you're looking at the application part of the product. Now, this is the Portkey integration. Everything that we've done in the last 2 days is here, right? These are all the different governance logs. I can very easily see all the traffic going into Portkey. These are all the specific logs sent by the application. These are all the different prompt injections. All the further analysis you can do by looking at the different filtering. So obviously the application, in this case, I'm using Portkey. You could pick the MCP application or others. You can specifically look at providers. You can look at the ones which have PII in them. Let me just select for this, and let me also say I'm looking for the ones with the different exploits, right? So once you do this, you can do the further analysis. This is a very good example because you have sensitive data in this, you have exploits, you have malcontent. All of this, as you can see, the complete analysis can be done here with regards to all the traffic flows for the Portkey integration. Going into Portkey, this is where all the configurations were set up, right? So if you look at it, all the different guardrails are here. These are the different thresholds that we put for it. These are all the different guardrails available with Portkey, and Acuvity is right here, right? So the scan content that Rishank was talking about, this
Sure.
is where it all fits in. I will pass it to you, Ank, for the Portkey side of the house.
Perfect. So thank you for showing. We're on the Portkey screen. I'll share my screen and I'll just take it further from the.
Please.
So while I share my screen, the core orchestration that Portkey allows, which is what makes Portkey unique in that sense, is you're able to use these guardrails when you're in development. You just want to log the results of running these guardrails. When you go to production, you want these guardrails to work now, and you want those to block your request every time the request doesn't follow the policies and rules you set here. That's something that Putki can do. Putki can also take it a notch further And some interesting use cases that then Portkey can do are, you can say that, there is out LLM is outputting a malicious response, which cannot be allowed, but that only fails 5% of the times. I don't want the same behavior to be triggered for 95% of my requests that actually don't see failures.
Sure.
In a traditional scenario, there's no way to handle the use case around something like that. On Portkey, you're able to do something very simple. You can say, I'm going to send all of my requests to the base or like a simpler LLM that works for 95% of the use cases. And for the 5% of use cases that fail, fall back to the bigger model that doesn't fall prey to being toxic. These are the kind of orchestrations that you can do through Key. I'll show you these now. The first thing I showed you, when you're in development, you just want it to run, you don't want to take any action. When you do go to production, you say that, if there's a failure, I want certain feedback score to be attached so that I'm starting to understand exactly how my system is behaving in production real time. This is something that you can do exclusively on Portkey. You can say that I've verified that I want these checks to run, and every time my checks fail, want Portkey to deny this request. So that's something that Portkey does directly at Portkey's orchestration layer. You can also take this a notch further. Wow, right? There are scenarios where my requests and my acuity checks only fail 5% of the times. So I'll say something like this. What I'm creating here is I'm creating a very simple fallback strategy. I'm creating a routing config that takes care of this. I'll say something like this. I want Portkey to run a fallback strategy on all the requests where my acuity guardrails fail. Now, what I'm going to do is 95% of my requests, they work with a simple OpenAI request, which is where I do not require Portkey to fall back to what could be like a higher capability model. But every time it does fail, I'm going to fall back to what is a much bigger, higher capability model like
Sure.
O3. This is something that I can do on Portkey. Now that I've created this config, I just take it, put it inside my request like this. Just show you my code example. I've created a very simple request where I'm just making a chat completions request. This has all of my Acuvity guardrails that I described here are applied. And then I'll just, do something very simple. Along with this, I'm going to send this config along with my request now. This is all I need to do. And not only my Acuvity guardrails, but along with that, all the orchestration that Portkey does on top of that for Acuvity for all the other partners that we support also automatically gets right.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, when I asked for a demo, I didn't expect the 1-2 punch. That was amazing for sure. I know we're a little bit over time, but what would a talk on agentic security be without a short poll on the phenomenon that has become MCP? I'm really curious on the perspective from both of you regarding kind of, where we are, how is Portkey and Acuvity respectively looking at it, any new product offerings around the corner we're about to see?
Yeah, so at Acuvity, we've been fairly busy in the last 2 months focusing on MCP. We have secure containers for the containerized deployments, which have like SBOM validation. They have all the things that are needed with regards to ensuring that you don't have root access for the containers. So everything with regards to that can be seen at mcp.acuvity.ai. We have published over 100 secure containers for the most commonly used MCP servers, ranging all the way from GitHub to PayPal to Brave Search. So I would really encourage our viewers to try that out. We also have a miniaturized transparent proxy, which will pretty much be bundled in with all of these MCP servers, which gives you all the runtime protections that you need when it comes to exploits, when it comes to sensitive data. There is also an open source version of this, so you can try that as the first capability. Everything is available as Rego policies, so that can be just bundled in when these MCP servers are being built. Then there is obviously the the enterprise version, where everything that you saw in the demo early on will also be available with MCP. So definitely one of the most interesting announcements when it comes to agentic applications. We've kept the same rationale of having GenAI security platforms. Rhino has now also been updated with MCP as one of the key aspects of security.
So that's interesting. And of course, we are also going big on MCP.
Mm.
When you say that you got a security proxy, is it going to still apply on the LLM calls, or you're thinking that that's something kind of you'll do at the MCP server invocation layer?
No, so interestingly, this is at the MCP server. This is essentially a proxy bundled in. If you look at the secure containers, the proxy is bundled in. Basically, all calls which go into MCP can be secured by using the Acuvity technology. Primarily, we would expect LLM as well as calls to go to the different data sources to pull in that data back. The DLP aspect will be very relevant for those kind of flows. The short answer to your question is it will be bundled in with the MCP, so it will be fine tuned for all the traffic going to the relevant MCP server.
What we are essentially building is similar to how OpenAI and Anthropic have created an MCP client on top of their own respective APIs that allow you to hit remote MCP servers, get the tool call results back, hit, make another LLM call with the tool call responses baked into it. That we're bringing into the AI gateway's own capabilities. And along with that, we're excited to support much more stringent enterprises and their use cases around having access control and governance layers over all the MCP servers that they want to allow access to.
Amazing. As we conclude, gentlemen, how can joint customers get started easily? Right? Can you outline the steps that they need to take, really, for either? We can start with you, Vishay.
Portkey is very simple. Just go to portkey.ai, sign up for Portkey, take it for a spin. If you like what you see, you'll a call with us. That's about it.
Wonderful. Sudeep?
Right. So we have a free offering. Sign up for Acuity's offering all the documentation available for users so they can pick their environment and language of choice, just invoke the relevant scan APIs, and they'll be good to go. Very straightforward, should not take more than 30 minutes for anybody familiar with SDKs and Python to get going. And we are really looking forward to have as many folks try this integration as well as our free offering to get agentic application security taken care of.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I know both teams are absolutely willing to help. So thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I know we went a little bit over, but I hope that was valuable. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sudeep. Thank you,
Thank
Patrick.
you. Yeah. Bye.